I said it already several times, so maybe it's not something new you will hear, but I used to deal with human rights violations as a main part of my life for almost 20 years. I've been called a human rights defender, and to me it is a very honorable title to be called a human rights defender. Someone really needs to do something important to defend human rights. Of course, I've never thought before in my life that I could be a military, and I was rather anti-militarist in my worldview. And this is specifically why in February 2022 I have joined the armed forces of Ukraine. Because for a big part of my life, I dealt with attempts to assist refugees and asylum seekers from a number of countries, including Russian Federation. I followed very closely the downward spiral human rights situation in Russia went to. And I was in touch with my colleagues from human rights organizations in Russia. I understood very well that if Russian Federation prevails and takes over Ukraine, big part of Ukraine, Kyiv city, all the achievements we've made in the realm of human rights in Ukraine in many years of advocacy and struggle and campaigning and education, we've achieved quite a lot actually, much less than we wanted to, but we've achieved things which were unimaginable, say 20, 25 years ago. All this would be just erased to the ground. The very core of my life activities would be just in vain, and instead the regime which would be installed, it's not that it doesn't have anything in common with human rights. Everything in it goes directly against human rights as a notion, as a concept which has human dignity at its core. And being left with only one option to defend human rights, to be a human rights defender. In February and March 2022, I had to use this option. And this option was to join the military and to take up Kalashnikov rifle and go and fight and defend what is important. Because I really believed and still believe that there are moments in life when if you take something seriously, you should be able to try to defend it with all means available. Within a couple of weeks, I was appointed a platoon commander, so I had 20 guys under my command. We took part in liberation of Kyiv region, and this is the first battle assignment where we've seen first 200s, first dead people, and they were civilians. They were not military. The first ones we've seen were civilians. These were cars on Zhytomyr highway, clearly marked as civilian, which were gunned down by Russian forces. And we've seen, I'm afraid, dead bodies just being in passenger seats. Unfortunately, we were not able to evacuate them at the time because they were closer to Russian positions, out in open, than to ours. And then during the liberation, we witnessed the consequences of 1 month of Russian occupation in the villages and towns we entered. And we listened to stories which were told to us by local inhabitants who cried when they saw us, the first Ukrainian units entering their villages, who hugged us and who asked us only one thing to confirm, that they, the occupiers, won't be back. They really wanted to hear this. Guys, boys, please tell us that they will not return. And we promised them, because this is the best what we could do. Within a few months' time, I was in the east of Ukraine with my platoon. And yes, we were captured by Russian forces on the 21st of June 2022. And what followed was 2 years and 4 months of Russian captivity. Within a couple of months' time, the occupiers decided that it's not enough to keep me in captivity as a POW. They decided to fabricate a criminal case against me and to parade me around as a war criminal. The only proof of my so-called guilt in my case was my confession. There was nothing else but my confession, extracted under duress. I really like this term. It is so mild. It sounds so nice. It's just not to say torture. Torture is a bad word. Under duress. When after the first interrogation in the so-called criminal case, I was brought back to my cell, and the first interrogation was 4 hours of forceful explanation to me what are my options available at that moment. The first person I thought about was my great-grandfather, whom I've never seen in my life because he was executed in 1938 in Poltava as the enemy of the people, accused of being part of underground counter-revolutionary network during the Great Terror. I had access to his file, and I've seen the protocol of his interrogation. When he was asked the first question, tell us when you became involved in this counter-revolutionary underground network, he responded, I don't know what you are talking about. I'm just a bookkeeper at local kolkhoz. And the next question was, we know you are lying. Tell us who involved you in underground counter-revolutionary network. And his second response was, okay, I confess I was lying. I was a member of underground counter-revolutionary network, being involved, etc., etc. I knew before theoretically, and now I knew practically what happened between his first answer and the interrogator's second question. I knew it because it was used against me 84 years later. His great-grandson was also forced to sign a confession into something he's never done, because the system, the machine which interrogated them, remained the same. It was never dismantled. It was never destroyed. It retreated for some period of time into the depths, institutional depths of security apparatus of Russian Federation, and then it came back in force and entered Ukraine. And I really believe that one of our goals in this liberation war is to stop and to dismantle this machine so that in 80-something years' time, our great-grandsons and daughters would not be forced to sign a confession into some horrible crimes they've never committed.
Thank you, Maksym.
I just wanted to add one more thing. What really is at the core of this machine is something that goes against the very worldview, at least me and my colleagues, and I believe most of us in this audience share, because we believe in people's agency and in human dignity, and really put people first. While what I've seen inside the captivity, talking to locals, to collaborators, to Russian interrogators, they see human being as a disposable part of state machinery, where the state comes first, and humans mean literally nothing unless they serve the state. It really reminds me of, the second commandment. It is idolatry. When people created something, in this particular case, the state, and suddenly it became, in its own right and force, active, saying that human sacrifices should be made for it to live. Well, humans should not. We are not protecting ourselves from different language or even political system. We are defending ourselves when it comes to the worldview, to the very basic values which are shared by all societies which strive to live freely in solidarity and without fear. So this is much bigger a story than many people imagine when they just read the headlines. Thank you very much.